When was this, Sally? Oh, dear. All right, I'll tell him.
Lever's coming along as soon as he's cleared up in his office. So with Mrs. Thursday and myself, that gives us enough for a quarter. Where the devil is she?
She's gone, Sir Charles.
What?
Gone home. It's past 6 o'clock.
I should hardly have thought that one was stuck to office hours at a time like this.
She's had a pretty heavy day, you know, sir.
Well, haven't we all? Haven't we all?
But Mrs. Thursday's not quite so used to the close-in fighting of a major takeover bid as the other directors. She's a bit out of her depth in all this, sir.
It is perfectly simple. A 1-for-3 bid for their ordinaries, plus 9 and 6 cash. And 55 shillings for 7.25% unsecured convertible loan stock 1982-85. Now, there's no difficulty there, sure.
Well, no, Sir Charles.
Well, Hunter?
Very well, thank you, Sir Charles.
I wasn't inquiring about your health, man. Where's the chairman? You're supposed to be her business advisor, aren't you?
Yes, Sir Charles, but hardly her guardian angel. Gone home, has she?
She left about an hour ago. We've been jousting with reporters all day.
I told her what to say to that lot.
Everybody told her what to say. When she saw them gathering outside like vultures, she just couldn't take any more of it and slipped out through the stopping.
Well, ask her to come back, will you, Hunter? I want an ad hoc board meeting.
But, Mr. Hunter!
The rate Haxton shares are rising. If we don't get our offer in right away, it'll look ridiculous.
She's not at home.
What?
She went there, according to Sally, but she found another bunch of reporters at the front door.
Why didn't she wait for me?
What did she say to them?
She invited them all in.
Offered them a cup of tea, I dare say.
In the kitchen.
Oh, Mrs. T.
And once she'd got them all in there, she slipped out by the back door and gave them all the slip.
Well, she's learning.
Where's she gone?
She didn't say.
Didn't say?
Sally saw her getting into a taxi. Unfortunately, the reporters saw her, too. They may know where she is, but Sally doesn't.
This is unbelievable. Here we are, about to go about the heads of the Haxton board and put our offer to the shareholders direct. The climax of weeks of delicate negotiations, millions at stake, and where in heaven's name is our chairman?
1-6, 360. 7-6, was she worth it? 76. All the threes, 33.
Come on.
Oh, Lord, now I've dropped my pencil.
All the fives, 55.
55, I'm sure I have that.
Come on, knock on the door, that's all I want.
1 past 80, number 8.
8, I had that too.
Here, use mine.
Oh, thank you, madam. I'm really most extremely grateful.
We'll cross them out then, 55 and 8.
Number 11, next 11.
Oh, you got that too. You won.
One?
Shout it out. Bingo.
House call.
Good gracious, whatever's happened?
You won.
I have?
Yes. Oh, you're a proper innocent, aren't you? This the first time you've played.
Yes.
Oh, look, you haven't filled in the back of your book. Got your guest ticket there. Oh, just a minute, dear. I think it's his first time, see. That's it. Now your card, they've got to want that for checking.
Oh, good gracious me. What would I have done without you? Thank you.
I've got one claim from the balcony. Now, are there any more before we start the check? There's 2 more down here.
Oh, look, there's 2 more down there. Oh, what's 3 cents to 24?
8.
Oh, you've only won £8 then. What a shame.
Shame? Oh, believe me, madam, I can do with £8 all right. Who can't these days?
Well, it's not like 24, though, is it?
I'll never look a gift horse in the mouth, madam. £8, whatever next. I'm sure you could do with it yourself, couldn't you? And I've got you to thank for it. If it hadn't been for you...
Oh, well, you see, you can't afford to mess about.
I count.
It don't count if they call the next number before you shout. See that notice up there? If you have a house, shout loud enough to put it down.
25.
In front of all these people?
29.
I feel such a jackass.
33.
Is that my card they're calling out?
Oh, well, they've got to make sure it's not a bogey, see?
Bogey?
42.
Well, that you haven't made a mistake.
53.
What made you come in tonight if you've never played before?
Well, I was just passing, and I'd often wondered what these bingo places were, so I said to myself, look, let's drop in and have a go. And why not, for heaven's sake?
I used to play bingo every Tuesday one time, regular as clockwork. Not here, of course. I don't know anyone at all here.
Well, anyone can see that you're an expert. Oh, thank you, young
That's
lady.
the next card to get ready. It's the accumulator now.
Where do I get the,
Oh, at that desk down there. But I'll show you afterwards.
well, perhaps you'd join me for a little celebration later.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
Oh, I've you to thank for my good fortune, and dash it all, it isn't every day that one comes into money, is it?
No. Not every day.
I down for the full house.
Oh, you...
Oh, what does it matter? Algy Haxton's been deliberately spreading false hopes about our intentions just to jump up the price of his shares and discourage acceptance of our present offer. Well, we can't raise it any more, can we?
No, Sir Charles.
Not a penny.
Not a farthing. All the same, if those shares of theirs do go any higher tomorrow... Oh, excuse me. Yes? What's that? Oh, what on earth gave you that idea? Press think the whole deal's off. Off? She's what? My dear fellow, at a time like this, the chairman of the group is hardly likely to... You saw her go in. Draw what conclusion you like. She's playing bingo.
What did you say?
£10 million of her own, and she's out there batting for the weekly accumulator. Bingo.
Yes, just behind the Oval, Archer Street.
Well, fancy.
Next door to a sweet shop. What was the name of it now?
Mrs. Parker's?
Yes, that's the one. Holmar Parker's. They don't make toffee like hers nowadays.
Well, I'll never.
There's all these fancy flavors and hygienic wrappings. Where's the goodness in it? That's what I want to know.
Oh, well, you don't catch me hankering after the old days. Lose a couple of bob and the old family had to suffer.
No, but they made us what we are. People like us, brought up in a hard school. We know the value of things. We know what really counts in life.
True enough.
An honest day's toil and a good bread pudding for your supper at the end of it. What more can a man want?
No, not for supper. It's too heavy on your stomach late at night.
You don't like bread pudding?
Oh, of course I do. When my Bert was alive...
It does be good to hear you now. Come on, let's have that drink we promised ourselves.
Oh, no, really.
We won't catch a bus for ages with all these crowds, and the old bell next door still serves a good jug of ale.
Well, it's ever so good of you, but...
There she is, Murray. Mrs. Thursday. No, I insist, madam. You don't know what it's like to be rich. And if I can't afford to buy you a drink...
Did you win anything, Mrs. Thursday? Does this mean the takeover's not going ahead after all? I mean, you wouldn't be out here playing bingo if it wasn't.
Do you mind?
Give us a quote.
Tell us what's happening.
Excuse me.
Give me. Come along, Mrs. T. Quick. Bates has got the road.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Excuse me. Thursday.
What's going to happen? Coming in here to play bingo with all she's got. I've all that blooming nerve.
What do you want to go and do a thing like that for?
You might have been mobbed.
Oh, I can take care of myself, Mr. Hunter.
Oh, yes. Well, we were worried, Mrs. T. And Sir Charles wanted a board meeting tonight to authorize the offer to Haxton shareholders.
He never said.
You knew this takeover bid was in the air.
All I know is I can't go and play bingo when I want to. Whatever must he be thinking of me going off like that? That bloke I was with. He won £8 tonight. Like a dog with two tails.
Must seem like a small fortune to him.
Well, of course. I know how I used to feel when I won at bingo. I wonder who he was.
That's a funny thing. I fancy I've seen him before somewhere.
Yes, he must be at the 77 bus stop now. That goes south, doesn't it?
That's quite recently, too. Oh, where the devil was it?
He knew Kennington in the old days. Mrs. Parker's sweet job in Archer Street and all. He didn't know who I was.
Everyone knows who you are, Mrs. T.
No, I liked him. He took me for one of the old sort, like what I used to be. Oh, let's have a breath of air. I don't even look for the window handle now, do I?
Dunwich House.
Eh?
That's where I saw him. Yesterday morning, coming out of the chief cashier's office.
That'll be him, all right. Name of, Budge. He applied for a job here. Here we are. You see, Mr. Williamson is retiring at the end of the month, and we advertised the vacancy. Not a very important job, but even so, you'd hardly expect a man like Budge to have the effrontery to apply.
Oh, why? No experience?
Oh, plenty. Just what we want. But, that last paragraph.
If they can't do business without wanting board meetings in the middle of the night, I'm sorry for them. Tell Sir Charles that if he wants to hold a meeting this morning at a sensible time...
Good morning, Mrs. Thursday.
Now, look, Sir Charles, you never even said you was wanting a meeting. Oh, all right, Jean, thank you. But it was just those blessed reporters. I couldn't take any more. They never let up. Chase you from here to Kingdom Come.
You can't pull the wool over my eyes, Mrs. Thursday. No, George Dunwich knew what he was doing when he left you in charge, didn't he?
Eh?
Dunwich go cold on Haxtons. It is now widely assumed in city circles that no offer is imminent after all from the Dunwich group.
Why not?
When the chairman is seen out playing bingo. In all my experience of city maneuvering, I've never seen such a brilliant move.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Charles.
His Haxton shares have been marked down already. Of course, they'll rise again when we put in our offer, but they won't reach the level they touched yesterday. There's not much you and I can teach Mrs. Thursday as the hunter.
Of course not, Sir Charles. Thought you might like to read this, Mrs. T. Your friend Budge applied for a job here. Oh, yes, Sir Charles. Mrs. Thursday can look after herself all right.
And us.
No one can ever take her in.
I'll go, Mrs. Green. Don't bestir yourself. Mrs. Thursday, come in, an unexpected honor.
Well, I've called, Mr. Budge. There's just one or two things I want to get straight.
Pray step this way. Not the most salubrious accommodation, I'm afraid, but home is what you make it, don't you think? A few of your own bits and pieces is all one needs.
I didn't come here for a chat, Mr. Budge. I'd just like you to listen to me for a few minutes.
Oh, please sit down.
Now, you followed me into that bingo hall last night, didn't you? To see if you could talk me into giving to you that job you were after.
I'm just the sort of man they want.
You think so? Unfortunately, my experience in this field has been somewhat restricted of late, owing to the fact that the last 6 months I have been
Incarcerated?
in one of Her Majesty's prisons. Is that the honest truth?
It's hardly the sort of thing one would want to make up, Mrs. Thursday.
Well, hardly the sort of thing one would want to own up to. What did they put you away for?
I absconded with some £500 of my employer's money. In one frightening, appalling moment of weakness, I pinched it from the safe. As an assistant cashier, I had the keys.
Assistant cashier?
A responsible post.
The very job you're after here. The identical job.
Yes. Why?
Well, you expect them to give you the same job again?
Well, it's the only job I know, Mrs. Thursday, and I'm very good at it. Now, you look at all the experience I've had. You don't mean that that's the reason they wouldn't even interview me, surely?
Can you blame them?
Well, it's hardly very fair to hold this against me, you know. I have been to prison after all.
Well, that's what I mean.
If that didn't teach me to mend my ways, then why was I sent there? What's a prison for heaven's sake?
Well, the point is, Mr. Budge,
To punish and deter the evildoer. Well, I have been punished and deterred. I shan't steal again. To suggest that I might is a reflection against the prison service.
Aye?
All those good people who work so hard to make my life in prison as unpleasant as possible. I'm not likely to risk being sent back there again. Allow me to say, is it likely?
Well, we only got your word for that, Mr. Budge.
Only my word? Well, didn't I give the name of 2 referees who'd vouch for me? Yes, they are. Colonel Robbins, MC, and the Reverend Field. You won't find 2 more worthy gentlemen than that.
But surely they can't know about your bit of trouble.
Can't know? Why, the Reverend Field was my prison visitor, and Colonel Robbins is the governor.
The governor of the prison? You put down the governor of the prison for a testimonial?
He knows me very well. Now, you get on to him, Mrs. Thursday. Oh, good heavens. I commit a crime and I pay for it in prison. Well, that wipes the slate clean, surely.
Well, it's not really up to me, Mr. Budge. I don't like interfering with the workings of the office. Still, if you come round to Dunwich House tomorrow morning, we'll try and find something for you. 10:30 sharp.
I have my faults, Mrs. Thursday. Who hasn't? But I assure you unpunctuality is not one of them.
Oh, well, that's something to be grateful for, at least. I'm not making any promises, mind, but we'll see.
Perhaps when I've settled into the job, you'd do me the honor of dining with me one evening. Nothing very grand, of course.
Were you really born in Kennington?
Mrs. Thursday, you're doubting me again.
Came right out with it. Didn't try to hide anything. Fancy applying for a job as cashier and admitting he'd just left the Nick. You've got to admire him.
Naming the prison governor as a referee, that's the bit I like.
You been onto the phone to him?
No, I haven't, as a matter of fact. I'll do it now.
I wouldn't trouble. That parson said we'd be doing right to trust him.
He doesn't have to do the trusting, does he?
No.
Mr. Budge is here.
Oh, ask him to come in, Jean.
A very good morning to you, Mrs. Thursday. What a miserable-looking day, is it not? Nevertheless, summer is on the way. As I strolled through the market on my way here, I couldn't resist these tulips. Blown in from Holland, you know.
Oh, fancy. Oh, this is Mr. Hunter, Mr. Budge.
Delighted, I'm sure.
Didn't know they sold tulips in threes, Mr. Budge.
The good lady did me a favour. Unfortunately, Mr. Hunter, I couldn't afford more than 3. However, the widow's mite, you know.
Oh, they're ever so nice, Mr. Budge. I don't get flowers every day.
Well, perhaps Miss Mackenzie could find a more elegant vase for you later and see if she changes the water. I doubt if that's altogether fresh even now. Do sit down, Mr. Hunter. As Mrs. Thursday's business advisor, you've every right to be here, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Budge. Now, Mrs. Thursday decided, very generously, I feel, to find some position for you in the firm.
I am immensely obliged.
The hours are from 9 to 6, and you'll start on Monday week.
Monday week?
Is that not convenient, Mr. Budge?
Well, let me see. I have to go to Worcestershire the day before to attend to my mother's grave. I've heard from the local rector there that it's in a sad state of neglect, owing, of course, to my enforced absence of the past 6 months. However, there's no need for me to stay overnight at the rectory as I planned. Bound to be at least one train back that I can catch. Yes, 9 o'clock on the 16th will suit me very well.
You see, the lips are out of order, Mr. Budge.
Oh, dear.
At least they need overhauling. And on the 16th, they're going to be taken out of service for 3 weeks.
Oh, well, if everyone else has to walk to their office, Mrs. Thursday...
We're offering you a job as lift attendant, Mr. Budge.
Forgive me, I don't quite...
A temporary post.
For 3 weeks?
In charge of the big, manually operated lift that all of us will have to use till the others are in action again.
Lift attendant?
Yes, well, you see, if you give satisfaction, I'm sure we'll be able to find you something, well, a bit more permanent, perhaps afterwards.
Well, I must warn you, Mrs. Thursday, that as a lift attendant, my experience is limited, not to say non-existent.
It doesn't call for much experience, Mr. Budge. However, if the offer's of no interest to you...
No, I'm sure I'll pick it up soon enough. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Question of button pushing, isn't it?
A little more than that in that lift.
Well, the dignity of honest labour is not to be belittled. Still...
You can't expect to walk into a big job, you know. I mean, you've got to prove to people, well, start at the bottom again.
Oh, certainly. Come in on the ground floor and work my way up. I just hadn't imagined doing it quite so literally.
You're damn lucky to be offered anything.
Oh, now, Mr. Hunter, there's no need to say that. I'm sure Mr. Budge understands.
Oh, indeed, I'm not ungrateful. The trouble is, I won't be able to steal anything in a lift.
I should hope not.
I suppose I could pick the odd pocket, but I'd be too clumsy. I'll just have to be honest. And that won't prove anything to you or me.
Well, I don't think I should joke about it, Mr. Budge.
No, I'm perfectly serious. If I'm not given the opportunity to steal, how will you know if you can trust me?
You actually expect us to put temptation in your way?
How else will you know that I can resist it? But let's not quibble, for heaven's sake. I am deeply grateful for the chance of any advancement. I take it there'll be some kind of uniform?
Yes, Mr. Mills will fit you out at the staff entrance.
Well, I better let him have a note of my measurements then. Tailors usually get a little wrong with my measurements around the waist. Until the 16th then. And rest assured, Mrs. Thursday, that I won't let you down. And when you're running a lift, that is quite important, isn't it? Good day.
Well, I've seen some liberty takers in my time, but he tops the lot.
Oh, I like him, and I think he's honest. Of course, he might have played me up a bit about, you know, Kennington and
Oh,
all
no,
that,
he didn't tell you a lie about that, as a matter of fact.
You mean he was born in Archer Street?
Yes, number 62. I took the precaution of dropping into Somerset House this morning to check.
Well, right next to Mrs. Parker's sweet shop. Well, he is all right then.
I wish I had your faith, Mrs. T.
Oh, well, you never get anywhere in this world if you don't trust people.
A very good morning to you all, ladies, gentlemen, pray step aboard. Morning, Mr. Jenkins. Any more passengers?
We are, I think, ready to depart, Budge.
One moment, sir.
Oh, really?
One of the managing directors is approaching. It would hardly do to leave without him, sir. Very good morning to you, Sir Charles.
Morning. Morning, Sir Charles.
Good morning.
Enjoy the play last night, sir?
Play?
I think I caught sight of you in the stalls with your good lady. Tolerably well done, I thought. None of this appalling kitchen sink stuff, anyway.
You've passed my floor, Budge.
We'll get there in time, sir, never fear. Ah, we've arrived. There you are, sir, all safe and sound.
You know, this is only a lift. Sometimes you make it sound like a journey to the moon.
Excuse me, sir. My paper, I believe.
Oh.
Well, keep it if you wish, sir. Borrow it till lunchtime.
Oh, please, thank you. There'll be one in my office.
I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Jenkins. Now then, number 2.
You know it is.
I understand that Mr. Williamson, the assistant cashier, has agreed to stay on for a bit.
That's correct.
Having difficulty finding a replacement.
We'll find the right man in the end.
Oh, of course you will, sir. I'm sure the right man isn't very far away at all.
Ah, what?
Oh, Mrs. Thursday, you're not walking up, surely.
Oh, it's only a few floors.
No, come in, come in. How can I prove my worth if I don't have passengers? Now then, number 5.
Yeah, your last day, isn't it, Mr. Budge?
Oh, sadly, sadly.
Well, I spoke to Mr. Mills to see if there was a vacancy among the cleaners. But, of course, being all women and that...
Oh, you've been more than kind. Pray don't concern yourself any more.
Of course, Mr. Hunter's keeping a lookout for you, you know, somewhere in the building. So,
Well, I've already put in an application for a post in Harblows. And if I could give your name as a reference...
Oh, what post?
Assistant cashier.
Did you tell them about, you know?
Naturally.
Well, what hope do you think you've got to get it, Mr. Budge?
When the magistrate sentenced me, Mrs. Thursday, he never said that as part of my punishment I must never hold a decent job again. Tell me, Mrs. Thursday, do you think I'd rob another safe? Do you, honestly?
Good morning, Mrs. Thursday.
Morning.
You forgot to sign this memo last night. I wonder if you'd like to do it now.
I couldn't make head or tail of it.
Oh, it's quite an order.
Well, I don't like signing things I don't understand.
There's nothing wrong, is there, Mrs. Thursday?
Tell me, do you think he'd rob another safe? Mr. Budge.
Oh, no, not really.
I think I'll have a word with Mr. Jenkins, the cashier.
Oh, I wouldn't rush into anything, Mrs. Thursday.
Well, either we trust him or we don't, it seems to me. I shan't be long.
But Mrs. Thursday, he can come to you.
Oh, no, I don't like taking him away from his work.
Oh, I think he'd rather come to you.
Oh, all right, then.
Mr. Jenkins, it's Miss Mackenzie here. Could you come and see the chairman?
Look, if he's busy...
Right away. Yes, that'll be fine. Bye.
Well, I think Mr. Budge is absolutely right. We've got to give him the chance to prove that he's straight. And I'll lay a pound to a pinch of salt that man is honest.
Trouble.
Now what?
It's serious. Someone's stolen a necklace from Joe Lever's office.
Necklace?
His wife's.
Well, I didn't think it was his.
It was worth £500.
500? Well, he'd no business to leave it lying about. I've no
He
patience.
just had it repaired. He collected it from the jeweller's yesterday.
How do you know that?
He showed it to me in the lift coming back from lunch.
The lift.
Now, don't jump to conclusions.
Did Budge see it?
Oh, stop it. We don't know. Nothing's proved yet.
You wish to see me, Mrs. Thursday?
Oh, yes, come in, Mr. Jenkins. When did he know it was gone?
Last night he'd been out to dinner in the city, and when he got home about 1 o'clock in the morning, he couldn't find the necklace in the briefcase where he thought he'd put it, so he assumed he left it in the office.
Well, I bet it's still there. I don't suppose he's had a proper look. I never knew a man yet could find anything he was looking for.
They've searched the whole place 3 times.
Well, it's probably lying under his nose all the time.
Might I be permitted to ask, is something lost?
Yes, a necklace. Stolen, more likely.
Now, we don't know that.
We'll soon find out. The police are on their way.
Police?
When did this occur?
Last night, in Mr. Lever's office.
Last night?
Yes? Why?
Oh, nothing.
You didn't see anyone, did you?
Now, look here, don't start playing Sherlock Holmes, Mr. Hunter. Leave it to the police. They'll get to the bottom of it. Oh, come along in, Mr. Jenkins. Well, the fact is, I've been thinking about Mr. Williamson's successor. And I think we ought to consider Mr. Budge.
Oh.
Well, what's the matter with you, then?
Well, it's... this business of the necklace. You see, I saw Budge last night coming out of Mr. Lever's office at about 6:10.
Has there been some unfortunate incident? Larceny? A fraud? Is that it? A major fraud? You are police officers, aren't you?
Just take us to the right floor for Mr. Lever's office, would you?
Mr. Lever, Joint Managing Director.
That's right.
It'll rock the city. Scandal in the group at a time like this. Mr. Lever? He has such an open, honest appearance, too.
For your information, it was Mr. Lever who sent for us.
You mean he... what for?
But he often looks in at the director's offices about then to make sure they've all gone home before he shuts down the lift. Very considerate of him. Oh, use your common sense. He wouldn't do this. He'd know he'd be the first to be suspected. Stands to reason.
Yes, he'd also know there'd be very little chance of proving anything.
He'd never be able to look me in the face if he'd done it.
Well, he wouldn't have to do that anyway. This is last night. Leaves today, remember?
Yes, no job to go to on Monday.
Precisely.
Oh, the blooming old fool.
Panic over. The necklace has been found.
It has?
Mrs. Lever had it all the time.
Ah, could she? He said he left it in his office.
He thought he left it in the office. Actually, he dropped it in the lift.
The lift?
Yes. Budge found it after he'd gone and took it to his office to give to his secretary. But she'd gone too. So he took it all the way out to Hampstead to give it to Mrs. Lever in person.
Why didn't he hand it to security?
Because he knew Mr. Lever was going to the dinner last night and assumed his wife was going too. He thought she'd want the necklace.
Well, I hope you're satisfied. Oh, tell Mr. Budge I'd like to speak to him.
No, it's too much of a coincidence. There's something fishy in all this.
Oh, there you go again. Surely he'd know it was worth enough money to keep him going for a few weeks. But no, he takes it all the way to Hampstead and hands it in. And I bet she never offered him a drink or anything. Lucky if he got a thank you.
He says, if you wouldn't mind, could Could you possibly go to him?
You tell him to get in here, quickly.
He says he can't leave the lift.
Well, he's leaving it for good and all this evening. Oh, all right, Jean. Tell Mr. Jenkins to come back. On Monday, Mr. Budge starts as assistant cashier, and I'm not hearing another word about it.
Now, look, Mrs.
No
T.
arguments. And I'd think a sight more of you, Mr. Hunter, if you'd admit when you was in the wrong.
£5 in silver. A little more to the left, if you please, Mr. Rowley. There's another bag to go beside it.
You needn't have weighed each one separately, Mr. Budge. We put them all on together and save time.
Time, Mr. Jenkins, is not the most precious commodity around here. Right. That'll do. Thank you, gentlemen. That appears to be all. I'll do that if you don't mind. Just toss me over the keys, Mr. Jenkins, would you?
It's a bit late for that, Mr. Bunting. It's payday tomorrow. Oh, we've already, just this moment, drawn all the cash we need for the wages from the bank. Budge, for heaven's sake.
Oh, I'm extremely sorry. I had no idea.
Yes, very well. Nearly ripped my pocket right out.
Oh.
Have you checked the totals?
£3,000 in notes and cash, all present and correct. Of course, I didn't check the contents of each bag of silver.
Hardly think the bank is likely to have put stones in any of them, Budge.
You can't be too sure, Mr. Jenkins, even with banks. Don't you find those keys rather cumbersome to carry around in your pocket?
As you say, Mr. Budge, you can't be too sure, even with keys.
If you kept them in a locked drawer, then carried the key of the drawer around in your pocket...
The drawer is very easily forced.
Well, that was the arrangement in my last situation.
I dare say.
The chief cashier and I both had access to the drawer, so we could get the keys to the safe whenever we wanted them.
Yes, indeed, but if you don't mind my mentioning it, that arrangement did lead to a little, shall we say, a little mistake on your part?
I understand that that was the arrangement in this office before I arrived.
As you say, before you arrived. You've got the job, Mr. Budge. Be thankful for that. You can't have the keys to the safe as well.
Which means you still don't trust me, Mr. Jenkins. That grieves me, you know. It really upsets me. How can I prove myself?
I suggest you pay a little less attention to the keys and a little more to your work. You're doing very well, Budge. Don't spoil it.
Hi, Jean.
Good night, Mr. Hunter.
Going somewhere?
Yes, I'm going to the theatre.
Ah, who's the lucky man?
Oh, Mr. Hunter, that would be telling.
How about going with me one day?
I might.
I'll keep you to that. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mrs. T. All set?
Oh, just let me finish this row.
By the way, I saw Jenkins earlier. Tells me your friend Budge has settled down all right.
Oh, I knew he would. He's been assistant cashier now for, 5 weeks and given every satisfaction.
Well, time will tell.
Oh, leave him be. I've seen and heard of enough of Mr. Budge to last me a lifetime.
Good evening. Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Hunter. I was hoping I'd find you, Mrs. Thursday. You may recall that some weeks ago I invited you to have a bite to eat with me one evening in my lodgings. Nothing very grand.
Mrs. Thursday's an extremely busy woman, Mr. Budge.
How about next Friday?
Friday, yes, that will be splendid. I'll make a note of it in my book. Yes, we'll arrange the details later. Good night, Mr. Hunter.
You'll be taking him to the opera next.
Oh, don't be like that.
Very well, I told you about that fellow. You prefer not to listen, but don't say I didn't warn you.
If he wants to take me out for a bite, what's the harm?
Oh, very well. Go if you like.
Oh, I've knocked about the world long enough to be able to take care of myself, Mr. Hunter. Oh, come on. Let's go out and find a nice caf and have a cup of tea. Come on, take that worried look off your face. And cheer up, Mr. Hunter.
Yes, I know, Miss Mackenzie. He's been worrying about the menu all week. Those are the provisions over there at the bag, I gather. Why on earth, though, Mrs. Thursday
I
should
don't
want
think
to...
she wanted to go at all. She only did it to get at Mr. Hunter.
Ah.
Anyway, tell him to let her know when she's expected, will you?
Yes, I will. Oh, by the way, you know, he still wants me to let him have the keys of the safe.
He's like everybody else, Mr. Jenkins. He likes to feel he's trusted.
Faggots.
Oh, ever so tasty there was, too, Mr. Budge.
Well, I took your advice about the bread pudding. I did think it might be somewhat too heavy at night. A glass of port, do you think?
Not for me, thanks.
It helps the digestion wonderfully, you'll find.
Oh, well, just a small glass, then. Don't want to go home singing.
Oh, it's only the Empire brand. It was just as good, of course, but I wouldn't like you to think that I was passing it off as the real thing.
Wouldn't be honest, would it?
No, hardly.
Did you tell your landlady about, your bit of trouble?
Of course.
What did she say?
Well, she said it made no difference. And then she whacked me up double the rent.
Oh, the mean old thing. Oh, I hate it when they take advantage. Still, things are looking better for you, aren't they, Mr. Budge?
Oh, yes, we're getting there. Slowly, slowly, we're getting there.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, you can't say I've been exactly accepted back into society yet, can you?
Well, you got a good job. The same as you had before. And people do trust you, don't they?
Well, Mrs. Thursday, you trust me, I know, and I bless you for it. But Mr. Hunter is still very suspicious.
Oh, well, he's suspicious of everybody. He's very good, really. But he's got a suspicious mind.
Mr. Jenkins, do you know that he still insists on locking up the safe himself every night? A man in his position. He always let Mr. Williamson see to it before, but not me. Oh, no.
Well, I suppose he feels in the circumstances, you see.
Well, has he any idea what I feel? Mrs. Thursday, how would you like it if someone thought you couldn't be trusted? Unthinkable, of course. But you see, all I want is to be accepted back into society like everyone else is. I just want to be treated like anyone else. How can I be if people like Mr. Jenkins still treat me as some sort of outcast? I'm sure you understand.
Well, I'll talk to Mr. Jenkins if you like.
That's all I ask, Mrs. Thursday. That's all I need.
Chairman's office. Oh, Mr. Lever, she has someone with her at the moment. Oh, just a moment. She's free now, Mr. Lever. She's free if you'd like to come along now. Yes. All right, fine. Thank you.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, but there's absolutely nothing I can do. Ridiculous though it is, nobody but Mr. Jenkins has the keys.
No, I'm sorry. I was with the chairman. Put those back in my drawer when you've finished with them, will you? I'll let you have the drawer key.
I'm most grateful, Mr. Jenkins. You won't regret it, I assure you. Right. Let's make a start.
What?
Well, he's convinced Jenkins, anyway. He says Budge is a changed man.
He's had charge of those keys for 6 weeks now and never put a foot wrong.
So far, so good. All the same, it's a good job I have a suspicious mind to keep an eye out for the sharks.
Oh, I couldn't manage without you, Mr. Hunter. It's no good thinking I could.
Mr. Hunter, there's a Mr. Catchpole on the telephone for you. He said something about a meeting at 3:30 tomorrow.
Yes,
Something about a meeting at Sandown.
yes, thank you, Jean. You'd better go home on your own, I think, Mrs.
I can
T.
wait.
Well, this may take some time. I'll see you later.
Put 2 bob on for me, will you?
Oh, lift, hold Oh, Mrs. Thursday. I didn't know it was you. I do apologize. I'm just trying to catch a train.
Going away for the weekend, Mr. Budge?
Yes, I'm going to see my dear mother's grave in Worcestershire. Spend the weekend with the rector there. Get a breath of good, fresh air in my lungs.
Funny your mother being buried in Worcestershire and she a Kennington woman. I know when my time comes, I'd like to be buried in London.
Oh, I trust you'll be with us for many years to come, Mrs. Thursday. No, you see, my mother was bombed out of Archer Street in the war. She went to live with her sister in the Vale of Evesham. Grew to love it. Small wonder. It is a most beautiful spot.
Oh, well, if you're in a hurry, perhaps I could give you a lift, Mr. Badge.
Well, that's very civil of you, Mrs. Thursday. Thank you, thank you. Oh, dear, I am a muttonhead. Do you know, I've forgotten to pack my pyjamas. I'll have to go back to the lodgings. What a nuisance.
But you'll miss your train.
Well, I might still catch it if, I don't suppose your chauffeur could take me home and then on to the station after he's dropped you, could he? Sounds a dreadful imposition, I know, but I am in a bit of a spot.
Oh, yes, he won't mind.
I might just do it then if nothing else happens to hold me up.
Bates, could you take Mr. Badge on, please? He'll tell you where.
Very good, ma'am.
Here you are, then.
If only you knew what I owe you, Mrs. Thursday. I won't ever be able to repay you.
Oh, you don't owe me nothing. I'm only glad it's all turned out right for you.
Perhaps you drop me off somewhere in the Cromwell Road, near the air terminal, perhaps.
Very well, sir.
Yes. That will suit me very well.
Didn't anyone know he'd got a record?
We all did. He even mentioned it himself when he applied for the job.
Yet you still took him on? And as a cashier?
Mrs. Thursday thought that he ought to be given another chance.
Yes. Well, she certainly gave him that, didn't she?
Oh, Mr. Hunter, look.
Yes, it's gone.
So we took it. Well, thank heavens I haven't made a mistake.
15,000.
Oh, I know. Oh, the stupid fool. We take him in and give him a chance, and then he goes and does this.
Hello. Yes, he is. Just a moment. It's for you, Sergeant Ross.
Sergeant Ross? Yes, sir. Yes, he is here, sir. Right, sir. We've got him. Picked him up at London Airport with the loot.
But how did you get onto him?
We had a tip-off.
But how? Who could have known?
I think perhaps Mrs. Thursday could tell us that.
Yes, I did it. I rang the police. You see, we got talking in the lift, and he was telling me about where he was going and that. Then all of a sudden he tells me a downright lie. I didn't spot it at the moment. In fact, not till I got home and started thinking about him.
Downright lie. What did he say?
Well, he told me his mother had been bombed out of Archer Street during the war. Now, I know for a fact that Archer Street wasn't touched during the war. I mean, it's the same today as it always has been. And I thought, well, if he could tell me one lie, he could tell me others. So quick as you like, I get on the blower to Bates, you know, the phone in the car. And he says he dropped Mr. Blooming Budge outside West London Air Terminal. Well, what could I do but ring the police? I felt terrible doing it.
Mrs. T, you're impossible. For weeks now, you've been telling me off for not trusting the fellow.
Oh, well. We took him in and gave him a chance, and he's made a muck of it. I'm sorry, really. There was something about him that I couldn't help liking. No, but he took advantage of me, and that's a thing I won't stand for.
Bingo, Mrs. T. Bingo.